Hi and good evening. You are watching AWANI Tonight with me, Saraya Mia. Losses from Selangor floods projected to be 1 billion ringgit. And does Malaysia appeal globally in the green energy sector? That's coming up. The government and opposition members unanimously agreed to an anti-party hopping law. They also agreed to bring back the limit to the Prime Minister's term to not more than 10 years. De facto Law Minister Datuk Seri Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar said leaders now have 2 weeks to scrutinize and make suggestions to the proposals before the next step. Wan Junaidi said on Friday that meetings were held with opposition leaders where related research findings were presented. He encouraged suggestions, amendments or feedback from both sides before the next stage of the process. The next phase would be to work with the Attorney General's chambers to formulate the law. Met Malaysia warned of rain and thunderstorms in some coastal areas of Kelantan, Terengganu and Pahang on Christmas morning. It also warned of similar weather conditions in several areas in East Malaysia. This includes Kuching, Betong, Muka, Sarike, Sibu and Bintulu in Sarawak, as well as Kudat, Sandakan and Tawau in Sabah. Rain and thunderstorms have also been forecasted for 1 or 2 areas in Perak, Selangor, Kuala Lumpur, Malacca, Johor, Pahang, Sarawak, Labuan and the interior, as well as west coast of Sabah in the evening. At night, rain is expected in 1 or 2 places in Selangor, Negeri Sembilan, Malacca, Johor, Sarawak including Limbang, Miri and Kapit, Sabah including West Coast, Interior Tawau and Sandakan, and Labuan. The Kelantan government is prepared to face the eventuality of a bigger flood in the state. Menteri Besar Dato' Ahmad Yaakob said Kelantan would use its experience in handling the land tsunami, which hit the state in 2014, if it were to undergo similar flood situation facing Selangor and Pahang. Ahmad said the floods that occurred in Selangor and Pahang were unexpected, and it reminded the state government of the major floods that occurred in Kelantan in 2014. As such, he said the state government, through the relevant agencies, is making preparation for the possibility of bigger floods following the latest weather forecast. Now, the projected total losses from recent floods in Selangor amounted to nearly 1 billion ringgit. This is according to independent research by former member of the United Nations Framework on Climate Change Convention UNFCCC, Shakib Shahril and team.
So basically, when it comes to this study, I'm using JKM's data in the website, also in the apps. So basically, all the details are based on JKM. And then when it comes to the findings, the highest record will be 21 December, 3:30 p.m., where we located like 19,711 families on 446 PPS, which result 985.55 million. So it's almost 1 billion. So the trajectory is going rise up day by day. Selangor holds 24.3% GDP, on which is like 326.8 billion. So this one, if let's say the floods affect a lot, I mean entire Selangor, so we can see like around 60 to 70% losses on GDP. So we can see that it brings a lot effect on Malaysia. But that's only just in Selangor. If we look into the overall, I think based on the reports from World Bank as well, they put 2% GDP losses. But I would assume that 2% is going up to 3 until 5% GDP losses only just for this month and the next month.
In order to tackle this, he urged the government for more investment into climate change resilience infrastructure and planning. The recent floods have claimed many lives and displaced thousands others. At this point, we can no longer turn a blind eye at the importance of flood mitigation in town planning. We speak to Faisal Parish from the Global Environment Center on rethinking development in flood-prone areas.
If we develop our town and our housing area in the floodplain, in the flood-prone area, we're just asking for trouble. It may not come today, tomorrow, but it's guaranteed to come when you build in the flood-prone area. So, for example, Taman Sri Muda in Shah Alam, that is a well-known flood-prone area, and it was strongly recommended that no development be undertaken in that area. Another area is the Rasau swamp area, just along the Klang River, and that was identified by Department of Irrigation and Drainage many years ago. This area needs to be maintained as a natural swamp. It will absorb the flood on the Klang. But the previous state government, in their wisdom, they decide to develop housing in that area, despite strong objection by many stakeholders. And that leads to an increase in the flood peak by 2 or 3 meters downstream. And that is why parts of Shah Alam flood now, and also Klang, which didn't flood before.
He said development activities like forest clearing and logging, especially at peat swamps and peatlands, will exacerbate the likelihood of loss of lives from floods. Faisal urged stakeholders to relook at town planning and ensure those responsible are held accountable.
The issue sometimes is that for development, certain players, certain benefit from development, and then society as a whole pays the price. And then both the people and the taxpayers end up subsidizing, doing the cleanup. But the problem is caused by certain individuals that don't pay the price. This inequity in the distribution of benefits is what drives the problem. And until we change that, that can be changed through proper planning laws, proper enforcement, and regulations such as polluter pays, or the developer needs to pay when they develop land, they must pay for the proper flood mitigation.
Time for a break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Global companies are increasingly going greener, and their demand for clean energy is rising. Malaysia has vast renewable energy potential that could lure foreign investments, especially among companies pledging to use clean energy. But is Malaysia an attractive destination compared to its peers in Southeast Asia?
According to Koh Juan Zen, CEO of Plus Xnergy, while countries like Vietnam and Indonesia are rapidly expanding capacity in renewable energy sources, Malaysia had already put in place solid renewable energy policies, complemented by a broadly attractive and stable investment environment.
Actually, we already have this good government policy, for example, like net energy metering 3.0, or let's say self-consumption right now, which is able to help those businesses when they run their operation here in the country to lower down their carbon emission by install solar, for example. If you look into Malaysia right now, actually there's a lot of local bank and also the foreign bank who are running this business in the country. Those financial institutions, they are super support on the ESG activity. They will provide a different loan and also a different financial facility for them in order to encourage them to go green, to lower down the carbon emissions. There's a lot of local solution providers who are able, which is mature enough to support those foreign companies to help them to lower down the carbon emission in the country.
Apple, Microsoft, Nestle, IKEA, these are just some of the influential businesses that have signed on to the RE100 pledge, committing to using 100% renewable energy. And these companies have set up or announced plans to expand or move parts of their supply chain into Southeast Asia. How can Malaysia have the upper hand in hosting these companies with an increasing appetite for renewables? Koh say one way is to allow these companies have access to off-site renewable energy.
I would say if Malaysia able to have this third-party contract policy or so-called off-site solar policy, it will be much better. I would strongly encourage our government to look into this. So through this off-site this policy, or we name it as a third-party contract or corporate contract, whichever you name it in a different country, which you can able to have your own solar farm, for example, like 100 megawatt in location A, while your operation plant is at location B or C or D. So this will be the much better mechanism for them to really go for RE100 kind of renewable energy 100% or this kind of solar off-site concept to offset their carbon for the energy consumptions through renewable energy to achieve their carbon emissions goal.
On to foreign news. Thailand detected its first domestic cluster of the Omicron variant in Kalasin province, northeast of Thailand. 21 new infections were linked to the cluster. The cases stemmed from a couple traveling from Belgium through the Test and Go scheme who tested negative before travel and after arrival in Thailand early December. Following this, government-linked New Year activities, including midnight prayers in capital Bangkok, will be cancelled. South Korea pardoned former President Park Geun-hye, who is serving a lengthy term in prison for corruption. The Justice Ministry said today that the pardon was given to overcome national divisions and promote unity. This comes as a surprise as President Moon Jae-in previously ruled out a pardon. Park was arrested and sent to prison in 2017 after being removed from office following a corruption scandal. In January, the Supreme Court upheld her 20-year prison term. She was succeeded by Moon, a liberal who won in a by-election following her ouster. The Republic's first female Prime Minister, Han Myung-suk, who served a 2-year prison term from 2015 to 2017 for bribery, was also exonerated by the government on Friday. Japan will not be sending government delegates to the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics. It joins a US-led diplomatic boycott of the Games, which is likely to deepen tensions with China. Instead, it will send officials with direct ties to the Games, including politician Saiko Hashimoto, head of the Tokyo 2020 Organization Committee, and heads of the domestic Olympic and Paralympic committees. Japanese athletes will also still attend the February Games as scheduled. The boycott, driven by Washington, followed by allies such as Australia, Britain, and Canada, has become another delicate issue for Japan, a close partner of the US with also strong economic ties to China. The diplomatic boycott stems from concerns over human rights issues in China. That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news updates on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and Astro AWANI app. I'm Saraya Mia. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm wishing you a Merry Christmas.